Every year, thousands of people go on spring break expecting the best week of their lives. Partying, drinking, living it up, hooking up. But what almost nobody talks about is what happens after. There were a lot of stories coming out of Houston recently after news went viral about spring breakers reportedly contracting STDs. By the way, those reports of over 40,000 people contracting STDs over a single weekend, not true. Anyway, the internet reacted as it usually does. They thought that news of those spring breakers contracting STDs was shocking. But here's the thing, this isn't rare. This happens every single year. Now, before I get started, the reason I decided to do this episode was not to shame anyone or to spread fear. Quite the opposite. It's because if you actually understand why this keeps happening, you can avoid becoming a part of the same story. Because this isn't just about one city. It's a pattern, whether it's Houston, Miami, Atlanta, or anywhere else in the States, or even abroad. Because as long as spring break happens, and it's going to happen every single year, people will continue to be reckless. My name is Rogan. This is the This Made Me Gal podcast. On my platform, I do social commentary and reaction videos. I encourage my audience to have private conversations in public. Let's get it.
Love me or hate me, God knows you made it. When he let his eyes on me.
So the Houston situation blew up pretty fast. There were a lot of clips, a lot of posts, a lot of people sharing secondhand stories. And it blew up on TikTok, Instagram, here on YouTube, and across so many different social media platforms. And I feel like it's turned into this big conversation that's just targeted towards Houston. But this is bigger than Houston. And like most viral stories, there's a bit of truth, there's a lot of exaggeration, and there's a lot of missing context. Let's take a look at this article from STD Rapid Test Kits. The headline says, did Houston really have 42,000 STD cases this spring break? And I'm just going to read a little bit of this. It says, it usually starts the same way. Someone sends you a screenshot, a TikTok, a tweet, 42,000 STD cases in Houston after spring break. Suddenly your stomach drops. You replay everything, who you kissed, what you did, what you didn't do. And now you're here trying to figure it out if this is real or if you're spiraling over something that isn't even true. So it says this number didn't come from where you think. The idea that 42,000 STD cases suddenly appeared during spring break sounds dramatic, and that's exactly why it spread. But here's the reality. Public health departments don't report STD cases by spring break week, which I could have told anybody that. So I'm happy that they did this article. They said they track them over long periods, monthly, quarterly, yearly. What likely happened is that someone pulled a large cumulative number, possibly annual or multi-month data, and reframed it as something immediate and explosive. And that's how a slow-moving public health issue suddenly looks like a 1 week outbreak. And I think that's important to know because people were losing their minds about what was happening in Houston, thinking like 42,000 people went there. They just automatically just showed up to a clinic and they were all diagnosed with STDs. And that was not the case. And honestly, I think just focusing on what happened in those 42,000 cases, for example, misses the bigger point. For me, the real question is, why does this keep happening in the first place? Because this is not the first spring break that we've had conversations about STDs spreading. Why is this happening year after year? It's been happening for decades. So I've been giving this a lot of thought. And the first thing I thought about as I was mulling over this topic is the fact that for a lot of these people, there's an environment shift. When people travel for spring break, there's this mental switch that happens. It feels like real life is on pause. You're in a different city, you're meeting different people, you have no routines, all your responsibilities are on pause, they're back home. And that alone to me makes people feel like they can take risks that they ordinarily wouldn't take if they were back home. Like hooking up with a perfect stranger at a bar, having sex without getting tested, or not using protection because the person doesn't, quote, look like they have anything. Number two, we have to factor in alcohol and group behavior. So when you mix parties with alcohol, strangers, and large groups, I feel like rational decision making changes fast. It goes out the door. People don't just act differently because of alcohol. They act differently because of each other. If someone around you starts being reckless, unless you're a really strong person, you too are going to start acting recklessly. And it starts to feel normal. And especially if you're young, because there's this pressure to live it up, right? You're only young once, just YOLO, right? How many times have we seen people succumb to peer pressure? It's spring break, right? You convince yourself that I work hard in school all through the year. Now it's my time to let loose. I don't want any pressure on me. I just want to do what I want to do and not think about the consequences. Number 3, and this one is a really big one for me, there's just a lack of awareness. There are a lot of people who just don't seem to understand. They don't grasp that a lot of infections are invisible. Let's take chlamydia, for example. There are no symptoms for that. There are some STDs and STIs that just, you can be asymptomatic. You don't show as having an infection until maybe you have to do some screening and then it shows up. So people assume, well, if that person were sick, if they had something, I'd know. But he looks clean. That's just not how it works. You cannot look at the exterior. That's just not how this works. You also have to remember that a lot of people who are showing up for spring break in Houston, Atlanta, Miami, wherever, Daytona Beach, they're not even in school. A lot of these people are like grown folks. They're like 30s, 40s, 50s showing up because they see a bunch of girls or a bunch of guys are in a designated place and they want to have sex. So they want to hook up. And then there's also this. You're dealing with a larger group of people who are outside of the college population, right? Not that it matters because anybody can have an STD or an STI inside of college. But not everyone who has an STD has an issue spreading it. There are a lot of people in the world, a lot of sick people who don't want to be sick, and they're sick twice. They have the infection and they're sick mentally. And if they have a disease, they don't want to be the only one to have it, or they might feel bitter that they got it. So they want to spread it. It happens all the time. It happens in relationships. It happens in hookups. It happens with just perfect strangers. They will spread that disease to you. And you showing up to spring break, and it might not even be spring break, it might just be a vacation. You unknowingly hook up with someone and they may lie to you and tell you that they're clean, and you get some alcohol in your system, you're feeling a little loose, and you just go and do it, and then you get infected. So I want to do some myth busting today. Let's clear up some things that get people in trouble. Here's myth number 1, and I hear this all the time. It's just one weekend. It's not a big deal. Honey, all it takes is one situation. Timing does not protect you. You go on vacation. Your kitty cat is intact. Ladies, I'm talking to y'all. Healthy, purring. However, one night with a perfect stranger or a group of strangers.
We listen and we don't judge.
And that kitty cat has taken a turn for the worse. You cannot let any old buddy be handling your private parts. Myth number 2, what happens here stays here. Miss, this is not Vegas. This is not Vegas. This is Houston. This is Miami, Atlanta. So these cell phone cameras, these little cell phones right now, they make it so what happens here don't stay here. What happens here stays here unless one of those guys takes a phone and secretly records you while you are sleeping after having sex, or he records you while you're awake but you're out of it because you're drunk. What happens here stays here until you have to notify all your sexual partners. What happens here stays here until you're scrolling on TikTok and you realize that that's you in the bed. What happens here stays here unless somebody catches you in a private moment when you're in an alleyway or on a beach or in a bar or in a corridor. So no, what happens here does not stay here, not in this day and age. Let's talk about myth number 3. Everyone is doing it. Nope. Everyone is not doing it. There are some people who go on spring break. They want to have fun with their guys. They want to have fun with their girls, or they have mixed groups and they go to party. They go to the clubs. They go shopping. They go to the beach. They have good, clean fun and they go home intact. These are people who are very cautious about the company they keep, and they stay in the same circle, and they might meet a friend or two, but they're not doing anything crazy and they're not being wild. There are a lot of people who are able to travel to a destination for spring break, have fun, and then go back home with their reputation intact. Myth number 4, you can tell if somebody has something.
Who said that? Who said that?
Who tell you that? I know who tell you all that. Because no, you cannot. Most times there are 0 visible signs. I told you before that a lot of people are asymptomatic. And unless you are in the dying stage, a lot of people are living with diseases and they look quite healthy. So you don't know. I often hear people online say, don't date someone, don't go out unless you see their My Chart. I mean, that's a great first step. Yeah, sure. But if you did your STD screenings 6 months ago or 4 months ago, or even a month ago, you could have done something reckless days later. So the My Chart isn't really representative of your current state. So if you're going to be with someone, strap up. But if you're out here spring breaking it up and vacationing it up, and you're looking at someone and you're strictly going off of how they look, sir, ma'am, you're going to be in some serious trouble. Myth number 5, I'm going to go get tested and then I'll be fine. Well, testing is important, but it's not instant for everything. There are some infections that take time to show up. Even something like the herpes simplex virus can be spread without obvious symptoms. So relying on assumptions instead of actual precautions is where people get into trouble. Myth number 6, it cannot happen to me. Again, I mean, why? Why it can't happen to you? Why can it not happen to you? Now, unless you have a genetic mutation that makes you immune to the HIV strains, which by the way is extremely rare. I think it's like under 1% of people are immune. What makes you think that it's not going to happen to you? I said earlier that there are people out there who have ill intentions. Their goal is to infect people with HIV. They don't want to have it by themselves. They don't want to suffer alone. And there are cases that are well documented about this. I think it's important. And you are free to disagree with this if you want to. But I think it's important for couples, even if you're in a solid relationship as far as you're concerned, to regularly get tested. I mean, you don't have to have trust issues. You should still make it a part of your package to get tested, your screening, because you just never know what your partner is doing. And if you are dating someone who just got back from spring break or vacation, and you want to use protection while you're intimate with them, or you ask them to get tested and you get gaslit or you get pushback, just be a little cautious of that. Now, some people might be offended, like, hey, I'm not out here cheating. Why do you need me to do this? I totally understand that perspective. But at the end of the day, I'd rather protect myself rather than concern myself about you being offended, because I just want you to be tested. And even if you don't want them to be tested, then just insist on wearing protection. You know what I mean? I feel like a loving, supportive partner is going to reassure you rather than just getting upset. I cannot tell you how many times I've heard people say, I'm not asking my spouse to go get tested, or I'm not, like my husband to get mad if I ask him to wear a condom or this, that, and the next. And it's a delicate balancing act. I'm not going to make it seem like it's such an easy thing, because now if the person isn't doing anything, they're going to now wonder, like, why do I need to wear protection? But again, what's more important? Preserving the relationship and not wanting to offend that individual, or making sure that you're good? I don't know. I know this is going to be a very controversial take. You guys can drop your comments down below as it relates to that. But I've just seen too many instances of wives who have gotten diseases from their spouses, and I've mostly seen wives getting it from their husbands versus husbands getting it from their wives. Not to say it doesn't happen, but I'm just saying the majority of the people who I see. And also, before I even wrap up, be careful too of people who never get tested. And you probably wouldn't even know this individual, like when you're on vacation or on spring break, right? But if you encounter someone who's like, what do I need to go and get tested for? What do I need to wear a rubber for? Like, run like the wind, like run. There are some people who, let me use this as an example. There are some men who don't like to get tested, and they'll say like, oh, my baby mama don't have nothing and I'm dealing with her or whatever. They use their partner's medical status as a what's the word I'm looking for? As evidence that they don't have something. And that's not good enough. You need to go and get your own test, So if you are going on spring break, be it this year or next year, because every year you're going to have spring break. You'll have spring break in 2043. I might not be around. Am I going to be around in 2043? 2043? I hope so. But anyway, if this video is still around in 2043 and you go into spring break, I don't want you to be fearful. I just want you to be aware. Use protection. Do not rely on vibes. Feeling this vibe. Don't rely on no vibe. Don't guess. No. That's important. Understand that not everybody knows their status. Not everybody cares to know their status. There are people who would prefer to remain in the dark. They figure, as long as I don't know, I don't have anything to worry about. And that is dangerous for you. You want someone who knows for sure, or someone who, even if they don't know, it's like, I'm willing to go and get tested to make sure I know. People who are like, I don't want to know because the knowing is what's going to kill you. No. It might hurt your feelings, but knowing is what's going to save you. Answering clean, ladies and gentlemen, is not sufficient, or at least it should not be sufficient for you. I'm clean, I'm good. No, you have to know that. And most importantly, if you do go away and you're planning, or I should say you're planning to go away and you know that you want to hook up with someone, get tested for, have a battery of tests done well in advance and do it before you go. Use protection and still get tested afterwards, Just a little word to the wise. I think that part gets ignored a lot. Also, know where the testing centers are, because you are not going to be thinking about that once you are in front of that person. When you revved up and ready to go, you ain't thinking about no damn testing center. So, just know where they are. So, again, the real issue isn't about Houston. It's not about spring break. It's that a lot of people just don't know or were not taught how to move when they are heading abroad or heading on vacation, even here in the States. Like, you have to know how to protect yourself. You talk about you only live once, but then you have to live with the disease every single day for the rest of your life. And this isn't to make you fear people, but I think a lot of people, if they're honest, even if they have an STD, an incurable one at that, I think if you ask them if they could cure it or if they wish they never had it, I think 100% of them would raise their hands and say, yeah, I wish I didn't have it. And I wouldn't want you to go away on a vacation or go away, on a girl's trip or a guy's trip, or go on spring break and come back with something. Because now that's all you're thinking about. And then that's something, if you're responsible, you now have to disclose to your potential partners. Just protect yourself. So I'm not here to judge anyone or to scare them out of having their fun. Please, you work hard in school, go and have your fun on spring break. But if you're going to put yourself in those environments, at least protect yourself. Because you see all these people here going viral in these viral stories. They didn't think this would happen to them. And I don't want it to be you. Anyway, drop your comments down below. Let me know, what's the craziest thing you guys and dolls did on spring break? Any regrets? To those of you who aren't shy about, sharing that sort of stuff, I would love to hear from someone who may have gotten an STD that they were able to cure or they weren't able to cure. Like, did you get it while you were on a guy's trip, a girl's trip, spring break? How did it affect you? How does it affect your life moving forward? Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed today's episode. There are some things I like to jump on, and there are some things I like to I like to think about things. And I don't want to just do the same old video what everybody else is doing with that crazy figure of the 42,000 STD cases. I just wanted to have a larger conversation. And I like educating people too. I think I like that aspect of it more than anything. I like to entertain you guys, but I like to educate you all, because I hope that I realize that a lot of 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds and 14-year-olds come into my comment section sometimes, and I'm so appreciative for you all. And I hope that my words resonate with you all. I don't want you to get any STDs if you can avoid it. Just try not to be too reckless. I know you want to have fun, but don't do anything that you cannot come back from. Okay. All right. Drop your comments down below. I cannot wait to chat with you, and I will see you all in the next episode. Love you. Toodles. So here's myth number 1. Chopper, go away. Go away. Go away. Go to the White House. Go to the White House. Go, 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 go. Bye. Have a nice time. So here's myth. I know this ain't another chopper. Oh, shameless plug, because I'm also a writer. If you're trying to start YouTube, grow your channel, or survive being a content creator without losing your mind, I've got a blog that breaks all of that down. It's about strategy, yes, but it's also about that stuff that content creators don't really like talking about. Burnout, inconsistency, algorithm anxiety, bad advice, and why half of the growth hacks that you see online are nonsense. Look, I'm not promising overnight success or secret tricks, because I wasn't an overnight success and I didn't have any secret tricks. But what my blog does offer is practical, honest advice from a content content creator who's actually doing this and has made a ton of mistakes along the way so you don't have to. If you're building a channel, starting a new one, or questioning all of your life choices because of the analytics, then I've got you. And this blog's for you. So head to thisbabygal.com. The link will be on the screen and tagged down below. Read responsibly.